Welcome to the Sales Lead Dog Podcast, hosted by CRM technology and sales process expert Christopher Smith, talking with sales leaders that have separated themselves from the rest of the pack. Listen to find out how the best of the best achieve success with their team and CRM technology. And remember, unless you are the lead dog, the view never changes.
Welcome to Sales Lead Dog. Joining me for today's show is Listy Limon. Listy is the Chief Revenue Officer for GFS Home Loans. Listy, welcome to Sales Lead Dog.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here today.
I'm excited to have you here. Listy, tell me a bit about GFS Home Loans.
We are an independent mortgage banker, and we are located in about 46 states right now. We're very close to kind of adding some more states. We have branch locations who are our branch partners throughout the country who also have many loan officers that work for them. And we service all of the customers in their markets. And we definitely really try to work really hard to work with our referral partners in making sure that we serve everybody in a timely manner. It's
been a pretty tough market the past 2 or 3 years. What are some things you guys are doing to separate yourself from the rest of the pack?
I think service, at the end of the day, service still is the number one priority for anyone in the mortgage industry because customers are more insured now than they've ever been. So you have to really be the trusted advisor for them. It is not a plug and play where you just send in an application. Folks have questions they want to know. And I think spending that time with them and being one-on-one and being knowledgeable, it's one of the things we really pride ourselves on is that our loan officers are really knowledgeable, know every single product out there in the market so that everybody has an option. And it has been tough. It has been really tough. But I will say some of our loan officers are doing better than they did 2 years ago. And I think that's just because they've not shied away from the market and really kind of just dove in head first. We often talk about it's the glass half full versus glass half empty effect, because when people are nervous and just shying away from it, they're missing out on opportunities.
Yeah, I believe service is really what's important these days, is that in such a tough market, people are unsure. You need to know you got someone you can rely on and it is going to take care of you, considering just what's going on in the market.
Yeah, I think that many customers are fearful of what the rates look like, that they may not even understand the situation that they're in. I have a perfect example. This week, we did a cash out with someone and they had no idea that they had that much equity or paying off their debt, that their mortgage payment would actually be cheaper, even though their interest rate was 3 points higher. It's just that spending that time, getting to know them really and diving in and spending the extra hour it may take, helping them. And that's kind of what continues to bring customers back.
When you graduated school, what was the vision you had for your career?
Well, that's an interesting one because I actually started in the mortgage industry through the work program in high school.
No kidding.
So many of my family members were actually in mortgage. And it was a natural conversation. I was probably the only one in high school that understood what credit was and what that concept was, just because it was just a normal conversation around my family. And one of my aunts referred me to someone, and I was actually a loan officer assistant in high school and started doing it. And at that time, you didn't need to be licensed. You weren't required to have a license. And someone gave me an opportunity saying, hey, he was so busy, asked me if I wanted to try to work his book of business and grab some refis, and put my head down, tried it out, realized I was actually pretty good at it, started making some good money. And then college time came around and my mother was very disappointed to hear that I was going full on, full-fledged and kind of never turned back after that and went, right in head first. And so for me, it was not my original ambition. I was actually going to go to school. I wanted to go to school to be a TV broadcaster. And so it was a completely different direction. But I really found something I was super passionate about and just kind of stuck with it.
That's awesome. I think you're the first one who's answered that question that way. I started out at high school.
Yeah. And everybody was kind of especially because of my, role in my position. And when I'll tell people, oh no, I've been doing it 24 years. So look at me very shocked sometimes, but it's because I did start out so young.
Yeah. That's funny. What were some of the early lessons that you learned that you still carry with you today as part of your daily life?
My daily life, the number one is structure. I did not learn it at first.
Mm.
At first, it was kind of, you just trial by error, fire, run, all gas, no brakes kind of concept, and didn't really take the time to structure my day and to figure out how to do more. Spent more time working on the business rather than in the business, or in the business versus on the business. And I did that on a daily basis. And then it kind of hit a point where I knew I had to pivot or change. And I actually had a coach who kind of asked me one day, well, why don't you just create structure? And I'm like, what a crazy concept. And did it. And it was amazing what happened after kind of just taking all that energy and putting it into spots where it was necessary. So I think that's been the biggest lesson for me, is just, really finding that structure. And I would say the other big piece for me is finding my own footing. I think when we are young in our careers, we often try to copy or imitate, those around us. But a lot of times in sales, what makes it you beautifully unique is you being beautifully unique. And I think that that's a little bit, it took me some time to figure out my own voice. And once I hit that measure of like being confident enough to do that, it was definitely, changed. And I really try to push people from the very beginning, try to create your own way of doing something, because it's going to make you different.
Yeah. You have to stand out. You have to find a way to separate yourself, not only as a business, but as an individual.
Yeah.
Competition's fierce.
It is. And I think it goes a long ways. And I think that the other piece for me is to remember that not everybody has the same ambitions, and that's okay. And you don't, you need to find out what they want and kind of, go that route. So mine might have been one thing, but that doesn't mean the person sitting next to me had the same one.
When thinking back before you went into leadership, a leadership role, were you considering that? Or was that something that somebody came to you and said, Listy, you really should maybe want to consider a management role? How did that happen?
It was almost natural a little bit for me. I'm the oldest daughter, and I am the oldest child, and I'm also the oldest granddaughter, and happen to be, so from a very young age, apparently I've been told that I've enjoyed taking the lead role. It's something I naturally would do in rooms, and I didn't even notice sometimes I was doing it.
Mhm.
And then with time, I really enjoyed helping other people. And as that started to kind of grow with me, I started to grow with what that looks like. And even putting my own sales hat to the side to be able to help other people. And so for me, it just kind of naturally morphed into that without me trying. And so I just kind of continued that route.
What were some of the hardest lessons for you to learn in those early days as a leader?
That you do not have to be tough. Being tough it is a different way to handle folks. There is a thing of tough love, but there's also laying down the hammer. Like, there's this thought behind, you have to treat people to a certain way to get them to achieve the results you want. And I've actually learned, when I've spent more time with them one-on-one, known them personally, and actually let that guard come down, I've been able to help them hit barriers they didn't even know existed, for them. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons for me in the beginning, especially because I was young. I was a very young leader, often the youngest person in the room. I thought I needed to come in, very strong. And I had to learn to pull that back a little bit, that really wasn't necessary.
Yeah, those are good lessons, hard lessons sometimes, but those are good lessons to learn. Hey, we're taking a quick break to thank you for listening to and supporting the Sales Lead Dog podcast. I want to take a moment and tell you about my book, CRM Shouldn't Suck. If your CRM feels more like a black hole for data than something that actually helps your team sell, you're not alone. The book breaks down why CRMs fail for so many businesses and what you can do about it. No fluff, just real strategies that work. So go to crmshouldn'tsuck.com to order your free copy right now. That's right, we're giving it away. And while you're there, take 2 minutes to check out the CRM Impact Score. It's a quick diagnostic that shows you how your CRM is really performing, where it's helping you and where it's hurting you. You'll get a personalized report with clear, actionable next steps you can start right away to maximize your CRM investment. We've also got blogs, videos, and a bunch of other resources to help you finally get the results you were promised when you bought your CRM. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes of Sales Lead Dog. Okay, let's get back to this episode of the Sales Lead Dog podcast. What really motivates you? What keeps you going? Success that you've achieved. Now you're a CRO now, which is top of the pyramid in the sales world. What keeps you going, keeps that fire in the belly for you?
I have 3 boys, and for me to show them not only as their mom, but as a woman, I think that it's been very powerful for me to show them that it is possible, that this is something you can do if you just put your drive and your ambition and you really want it, especially too, because I didn't go to college. And obviously having that conversation with them of, yes, your mom did not go to college, but I did X, Y, and Z. I've had to show it to them in a different way, that you can go a route, but it's going to take a lot of grit. It's going to take a lot of work, and you got to be able to roll up your sleeves to do it.
Yeah. I come from a very large family. I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and I've had a lot of conversations with them, that when they were trying to figure out what's their path, they're going to graduate high school and they're just not sure. And I'm like, you know what? Don't feel like there's only one path for you. There are so many paths you could go on, and it doesn't always have to begin with college. You can go do something else in your life, and you can always come back to college if that's what you feel you need. But, don't just think there's only one way.
Agreed. I tell my boys all the time, there's not one way. It's just really about what you want, and if you're going to actually put 100% into it. Yeah. And I think that's the key, whether that's college or if it's, you want to try something. One of my sons wants to open his own business, and he's young and he's like very, into it. And so I will always support that passion, but as long as they're committing 100%. And I think that's what's always driven me, is to be able to show them what's possible.
And that's the part I think that it comes along with that conversation is like, look, whatever path you choose, you still have to work your butt off. No one's going to hand you anything. You have to work your butt off. You have to deliver.
Agreed. I push them on that a lot. Probably sick of me saying it.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing about building teams?
Watching them succeed. It's something there. It is one thing for you to succeed yourself, but to see a team or even someone new to the industry or even someone who has fallen back, there's just something, that's irreplaceable. There's nothing, that feeling is amazing. And I've done it so many times to where I'm like, all right, I almost want to have just a core group of folks, because that's what makes me happy at the end of the day, is watching them get to that next level.
How do you build culture within your teams?
Culture has become one of those words where, it's almost a bad word recently. You see it. I mean, even you just open up LinkedIn and you see, topics and conversations about it. And so I always kind of try to pivot on the word culture and just say, guys, I want you to know and feel within this environment that it's a space where we're all here together to achieve success. But I think for me, the biggest piece has been having tough conversations when they're needed. I think sometimes people steer away from having the hard conversations and inviting folks in there that really need to be a part of it. A lot of times the folks who are not driven can bring down the team that is driven. And I have found it you will jump light years if you pull out the people who aren't driven. And I think that's been huge for our culture per se. And I also think having an open door policy. I would hope that everybody would say this, but I do pride myself that I'm always going to come with them with transparency. I'm always going to have honesty, but I'm always going to have their best interest at heart every single time. And I think because we have that type of environment and relationship, no matter if you're the receptionist or you're my top producer, that will always be the way it is handled in our team. And it's made a big difference for me. And I always operate that way. And I would say over the last 10 years, that was a big shift for me. And I've definitely been able to see longer tenure, seeing folks really shine and be open with me when they needed something.
What's the toughest part of your role as a CRO, and how do you manage that?
have not had to do it this like last 6 months to a year, but I think the toughest part is when the market was really tough. You had to make some really, really strong cuts, and everybody did in our industry, and that's never fun. So that might have been the toughest for many of us, is having to do that. And especially as someone who's super passionate about revenue, when it makes sense, to keep a company in a good standing, you have to make tough decisions sometimes. And so that was probably the hardest. Now, in this current environment where things are starting to look a little bit better, I would say the toughest part for me is when you do have to have an honest conversation with someone, if they're really driven, and if this is really what they want to do. And sometimes it is tough because what the answer is going to be, and what that's going to look like. But I also know what the outcome will be, because sometimes it may be the best thing to happen to someone if they need to pivot, or sometimes they may just all of a sudden they needed that pep talk, and they're going to shock the world and kind of be your next bestseller.
Yeah. I remember the first time I had to fire somebody, it just emotionally wrecked me. Because I just never imagined I'd ever have to do that. I was very young. I was, I think it was maybe 25. Never imagined having to do that. But it ultimately, we were connected through a mutual friend, and I found out from the mutual friend that it actually ended up great for him. Yeah. He was able to go on to something that was a better fit for him, and we were able to move on the way we needed to, and so that's what it was. A good lesson for me is that you're not really you're ending this, but that means they get to begin something else.
Absolutely. It's the next door for them.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. You say your mom with three boys. Is there anything in your role as a mom that's similar to your role as a CRO?
Often. And they probably cross over in both worlds quite often, especially because they happen to be all boys. And my way of mothering them is probably different than it would be with girls a little bit. Right. But yes, often I have conversations, structure, same as like doing your homework, making your bed, and you feel the, listening and matching quite often in between both. And I think even as they're planning their future, I do goals with the sales team, every year is a big thing that I'm really passionate about, and then we do them every quarter, but I've even started making my own boys do them. And they were like, "Mom, really?" I'm like, "Yes, we're going to bring this into both worlds now."
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's funny. They don't seem to understand at that age the gift you're giving them. They can't really appreciate it. I had the luxury of sitting in on my son's in the honors college at Oregon State, and they had a special seminar class. It was like 1 credit, pass, fail. You just had to show up kind of thing. And so he's like, come, I was there for dad's weekend, whatever. And I went to the class with him, and I'm listening to the professor, who was the head of the department, talking to them about how to go out and get internships and all these things that were skill building. But I'm looking around, and a lot of the kids are just zoning out. They're on their phones. And I'm like, they have no clue the incredible gift she's giving them. Yeah. And so they ended up the microphone for the kids to ask questions. I got the microphone, and my son was just horrified. Like, "Oh my God, I knew you were going to grab the microphone." But I had to thank her and just say, "Hey, I'm a dad. I'm here visiting. What you're doing is incredible. I wish I had that back when I was going through college. You are giving them such good life advice." They had no clue. Most of them in there had no clue.
No clue. Even sometimes my boys' friends will ask me things, and they're mortified because I'm going through and I'm coaching them on things, and they want the advice, where my boys are like, "Really?"
Yeah. Yeah. I live with her every day. I have to deal with this every day.
Yeah, every day. And, so I think with time, they definitely will. My oldest I've even seen that shift in him, where he has moved out and now calls me and asks me things all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's kind of, well, I've tried to tell you this when you were younger, but
yeah. 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 And remember you rolled your eyes at me?
They all do know very much though about credit, and I've like printed that into their brain. So that is one thing that I actually do know that I've done a good job at, because they are very scared of, they don't want anything to mess up their credit. So
oh yeah. Yeah. No, it's so important. What shifts have you seen from the terms of selling in the world that you're in, like maybe over the past 10 years in terms of how we have to engage the market as sellers? What's different now, especially with AI coming out? What's different that you're seeing from maybe 10 years ago?
The biggest piece for me is in our world with loan officers, and I would say this is probably in many industries. We are in an environment where people go and Google you,
Yeah.
and you're looking at your social media, and that is now your brand. That is now who you are. It is your digital store. It's where people are looking at you to see who you are as a person, what you offer, what other people, say about you. And I think it's become such a big difference because they can even go into ChatGPT and say, who's the best loan officer in Dallas, Texas? And it's going to give them a list. And so now it is required folks who may be hesitant to use AI, may be hesitant to use social media. They're being forced to get on that bandwagon. If not, they're not going to get the referrals they once did, just because it is not just about a realtor referring them. A customer is going to go look you up now, just like we look for doctors, just like we do for everything. You have to embrace it.
Yep. I just used AI today to find out, give me list of orthopedic surgeons. I live in Denver, in South Denver, these specific cities that specialize in sports injuries.
Yeah.
Here comes a whole list. It took me no time. In the old days, like I'd be reach out to friends. Who do you know?
Right.
You don't have to do that anymore.
No, it is no longer about word of mouth, and that is, and I think that's been the biggest change in the last 5 to years or so. It's definitely not what it used to be, and it's forcing people to look at their entire setup.
Yeah. How are you leading that effort within your firm to get people educated and begin getting them aligned to this new future that's coming so fast?
It's coming really fast. We are consistently doing trainings, trying to bring people in. You will always have the folks who are very hesitant, do not want to embrace it. We had all our leaders come into town last week and was sitting there with one who's been a great producer his entire life. He's struggled a little bit over the last few years, and he's kind of been beating himself up about it, and just having that honest conversation. We got to get on board.
Yep.
Like, you missed the mark on this. And he just hates AI, hates technology, hates some of these things. And he's like, I don't understand why it's important. Why do I need this? And I told him, are you going to go and get a vasectomy and Google it and you don't have a review? And he was like, absolutely not. And I said, okay, well, why would you expect a customer to do the same? And he was like, okay, point taken.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit of just showing them a little bit the differences. And then as some of them too, just looking at some of the younger generation coming in and how they're skyrocketing because of embracing it, and being able to show them the data points of that has been really helpful for some of them.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to ease it in for them, like figure out a way even to help them embrace it.
Yeah. Yeah. People have to realize, look at how much has evolved just in the last 20 years for us, where I remember Netflix was mailing DVDs. I became a customer. I'm like, oh, what a great idea. I don't have to go to the video store. I can just sign up my list and they just show up. But they didn't stay there. They were like, oh, streaming. That's really where we need to go. They embraced that. All the local video stores, they didn't do that because they were afraid, and they're gone.
Yeah.
So it's like that we as sellers, we have to realize you have to keep innovating. You have to keep finding a way to stay relevant.
Or absolutely, or you're going to kind of weed away. And I think we're seeing right now, some folks they're not embracing it, and they're hanging up their hat, or we're having to pivot to a different type of role rather than doing self-spacing positions.
Yeah. Yeah. What, looking back over your career, you can't win every deal. You have your losses. How do you leverage those experiences in your role as a leader today?
A lot of times the ones that you lose, you're going to take it. You got to step back and say, okay, what happened? What was the difference? And I'll be honest, some of the ones that I have lost down the line, I found out there was a reason that was it was not meant to be. And then there were some where we dropped the ball, or we could have handled it differently, or we didn't explain ourselves properly. And I think it's just a learning opportunity. A lot of times it comes down to communication. a lot of times it's the communication piece of it. And I think figuring out how to improve that and making sure that it doesn't happen moving forward.
Yeah. We have the people that are hesitant to embrace technology. What I talked about that with people is like, look, you have to understand just these examples we shared. Your customers are leveraging AI. They're leveraging this technology to become far more better educated than they've ever been in the past. How is that impacting your business and your role as a sales leader in the mortgage industry?
A lot of times our customers now can even look up, and challenge, okay, well, why are you asking me for this? Or, even down to a product question, which has never been possible in the past. Like that was something that we had access to. They really didn't have access to. And so it's really forced our sales team to be very well educated because they cannot give answers that they cannot 100% back up. Like they need to be able to back up what they're saying. And so it's really forced, everybody to be true, trusted advisors, be very knowledgeable so that they can educate. And I think it's a difference of just not selling. You're not selling a product, you're selling your value, because anybody can look up a product, anybody can look up, what other people are offering. So a lot of times they have to pivot and figure out a way to sell themselves. Even when it comes down to rates, this is an environment where everybody is just calling the next person, trying to figure out who's going to give them the best rate. But at the end of the day, they may go with a loan officer that actually isn't putting them in the best product for their future. And just because of that rate being lower, but it has not been communicated to them. So I think really showing your value of what you're going to bring to them is different than it is of selling what the product's going to be.
That's very strong differentiator in my opinion, because I think a lot of people view mortgage industry as a commodity. It's all driven by just the rate.
Right.
And that's not correct.
No.
There's a lot of complexity around these products.
Yeah. And it's not just the complexity. It's, are you wanting to do, what type of product are you wanting? How much are you wanting to put down? What's the best feature? Even if you're doing a refi, what does that look like? What is the reason you're wanting to do it? There are so many different products. Now there's so many different products that it is not a one size fits all for sure.
Right. So how do you guys keep on top of this, all the changes, everything that's going, because it's evolving so fast, everything. How do you keep on top of that? How do you keep your team on top of that?
We really embrace virtual training now. I think that it might have been a concept that was kind of foreign to a lot of companies pre-COVID is virtual training. But it has become a blessing for a lot of us because we've been able to get information to the street super quick by doing this. And not only that, we are implementing an AI feature into our technology. We've rolled it out to certain capacities, and now we're very close to the final piece, which is going to be the beauty of it, is we're putting all of our information in one spot where a loan officer will just, within our own personalized system, we'll just put in what they're looking for, and it'll pop up all the information. So that way they're not having to depend on someone and not having to go ask an underwriter. They're not having to ask questions from other people. They're going to have the resources at their fingertip that is solely based on our technology and not just kind of surfing the web and getting a mixed, bag of answers. It's going to be true data. And so that's going to be really beneficial for them to stay on top of their game.
No, that is it. That's the future. I was at a conference last week, and I was talking to a VP for one of the world's largest commercial travel agencies. And he was telling me about all the work that they've done with AI. So literally you go in the agent and just say, hey, I want to do this trip from here to here. And because it knows who you are, it's taken into consideration. Do you have any special needs, blah, blah, blah. And it's coming back with what are the best options for you based on what it knows about you. And I'm like, it's all about saving time. Like I don't want to spend 2 hours, 3 hours on Google Flights and then Orbitz or whatever, looking at all these different websites and comparing where am I going to get the best rate. The AI is doing that in seconds, saying here's the three best options, by cost, by, time. And I forget what the third option was, but it was like, boom, you could just right away, and then you can choose. And then it's asking you, hey, you're going here, as a seller, you can go in and say, what customers do I have in that area? AI is going to, here's some list of people you can, it's becoming this interconnected web of virtual agents that are just dramatically transforming like what used to be a really painful thing to do.
Time consuming.
Yeah.
I was telling a loan officer who's new to the industry the other day that they do not understand the beauty of the quickness.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first started, I had a book. It was a giant book that HUD, FHA would mail out. And that's where I would go search and read and for guideline and different requirements and what was allowed. And to think that we've gone and, less than 25 years from a book mailed out, we can search every single product is just mind blowing for me.
Yeah. It is amazing. Shifting gears a bit, CRM, do you love it or do you hate it?
I'm a big CRM fan. So I think that CRM sometimes are not used to their full capacity. And so that's where a lot of times people are like, oh, it's a waste. And I think that it's purely because you're not working it. You're not utilizing it properly. And a lot of times folks will put information in there and then just leave it and just, hope that something happens to it.
Right.
They're not really utilizing it to its best, and I think that CRMs are really where it's going to end up being because we have to have a place of data. We're not going to remain in the age of Excel sheets. Like that's fine. Like I think that people need to get into this next generation just because CRMs are going to interface with a lot of software. I'm already seeing it happen. Our CRM interface with almost every technology piece we use right now so that you're not having to enter into multiple places. And it's just going to be a point of entry. It's your point of truth for data.
Yeah. Yeah. And with AI coming on, it really is going to be like, if you're not putting in information of value, you're just hampering or limiting what AI is going to be able to do for you in the future. You have to be putting good data in and data that's useful and insightful, not just, hey, I spoke with John. That's not helping. You got to put in some good stuff, but that's where AI can help you as well. Where the way I use it today is like mind blowing compared to where it was a year ago. And it's really exciting to see.
It is. And especially like adding in features where you can, do some of the AI videos and the, different gifs and texting. And there's just so many different things that it's capable of now. You can blast a message to 150 people at once. Simple, like, hey, just so you guys know, just quick, that's not what it used the capabilities. And I think that utilizing that is really creating efficiency. And I think when people start to understand it's an efficiency tool too. It is your place where you keep your records, but it's also where it's efficiency for you.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your biggest challenge when it comes to CRM?
Data. Getting people to put in accurate data and getting to and doing it every time. Creating an habit, creating a routine, a structure, really truly utilizing it and then putting in correct data, not when you get to the phone number instead of putting 123, 123. Like there are a lot of things where even if you put stop guards in place to try to prevent people doing that, they kind of, will maneuver it a little bit. And I think that finding a way to get them to embrace it it goes a long ways. Yeah. And I think it's really just spending the time.
That's usually the biggest challenge we see when we're coming in. We get hired to do a lot of rescues and re-implementations. And when we look at their data, it's the foundation of everything. Garbage in, garbage out very much applies. And one of the things we do when we're talking to people about this is you need to understand the hidden cost of bad data. At the time of ingestion, it costs you $1 to put in good data. But if I have to send somebody back a week later, 2 weeks later, whatever, to go in and fix or add what you missed, that might be $10. Right. Later on, if that's causing rework, because, hey, we were well into this process and the process has been using bad data. Now we have to go in and redo stuff. Now it's $100, and so getting people to understand that there's a cost to this and an implication to this downstream if you're not taking the time, which really costs not a whole lot, to just ask the questions, get the data you need, and you're done and you move on with your day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've been really excited about is we're working on having our front end POS system integrate into the CRM, which would then take away some of that data entry point for the sales team, because then you're getting that data straight from our consumer who is putting your data for their application, and they're typing in their email, they're typing in their phone number, they're typing in those points of entry, and your success rate is much higher of capturing all data when it's coming through those sources. And so we've had some really good success. And so now we're pushing the adoption on moving it that way, because you still have some consumers who do not want to do a virtual, application. They do not want to go on the web and still want to, phone call or meeting face to face. I think with time, as we see that progression happen, we'll also see progression on our quality of data.
Yeah, that's awesome. Listy, we're at our time here on Sales Lead Dog. I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's been a joy listening to you. If people want to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I would say on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can go to GFS Home Loans, and all of my contact information is on there as well. Or I'm also on Instagram, the Listy Limon.
Awesome. If you didn't catch that, no worries. It's in our show notes. You can get that at impellercrm.com/sales lead dog. We get not only this episode of Sales Lead Dog, but all our other episodes. So be sure to check that out. Be sure to subscribe. We greatly appreciate that. Listy, thank you again for coming on Sales Lead Dog, and welcome to the Sales Lead Dog Pack.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
As we end this discussion on Sales Lead Dog, be sure to subscribe to catch all our episodes. On social media, follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Watch the videos on YouTube, and you can also find our episodes on our website at impellercrm.com/Sales Lead Dog. Sales Lead Dog is supported by Impeller CRM, delivering objectively better CRM for business, guaranteed.